everyone, Scott Weaver with Factory Direct Designers Workroom. Okay, so we're going to pleat another swag up. I haven't had this floral. This is the one that I just had pleated up. And also check out my video on seaming a swag. That is, if you have a swag that your pattern is too wide for, you may have to add seams to your swag. In this case, with this swag here and this swag, I've had to add seams to it. So where's my seams? In these corners right here. There's one here and there's one right here. Very hard to detect, but they're there. So check out that video. That is if you need to seam a swag. Anyhow, getting to pleating a swag, I like to show different versions of it, and hopefully this one will be as helpful as possibly the other ones were. I'll just put that to the side a little bit so you can see. Again, we're going to be grabbing the V right in these corners right here. That's what forms the pleats right here. And that's where you're going to actually form your pleat. So anyhow, I'm going to grab this little V right in here. I'm going to remove this pin. Now this one is lined. It's fully lined. So I'm dealing with both the fabric and the lining. I'm going to bring both of them up to the top of my pleating board. And putting a push pin in to hold it. And then I'm just going to fix this pleat a little bit right here. And like I always keep saying is take your time with these, don't rush them. There's my V right here. Let me remove this pin. Now these patterns here, just to let you know, they are on my website. If you want to purchase, I've got several different sizes of patterns on my website. I feel that these patterns are so much easier to pleat than the paper ones that you get. They're made out of 100% fabric, and they come two different ways. They come fully pleated. If you want a version that's fully pleated, that's a little pricey. They're $29.95 plus the shipping on them, but they come to you with 100% cotton fabric and they're pleated. The second version is a non-pleated, and it's actually half a swag pattern, which I've got plenty of videos on how to do, and that's only $14.95 including the shipping. Anyhow, so that's the first one made. Going to my second one, I like to put my hand behind here, form the pleat as I'm going. Again, I'm going to be grabbing the V portion right in here because that is where the pleat is. I'm bringing it up to the top. I'm removing the pins just before I bring it up. Another push pin. Going over to the other side. Move my pin. Grab that V right in here. And I want to keep everything as even as I can at the top of my board. Once you get a hang of this is not bad. It just, you just can't assume this is going to form a pleat by bringing them up. You have to kind of form the pleats and working with the center of the swag pattern, or the swag, and also to the edge where the point is right here. And you'll notice that I take this and I'll take this and I'll kind of stretch it a little bit. And that forms this fold right here as I'm doing it. I'm going to grab it, and I'm holding with my other hand here to hold those pleats in place. So you have to have a little dexterity, I would say. Now this piece right here, we'll talk about this piece right here. This is called the tacking strip, which I'll explain to you later. This right here is what you staple onto the board. Matter of fact, I'll probably show you how to put that on at the end of the pleating here. Okay, so again, we're going to create the fold. Now you see this doesn't naturally want to go up. So you have to kind of force it. Bring it up, just like that. A lot of times fabric wants to do what it wants to do, and you have to kind of make it do what you want it to do. This is a relatively wide swag. This is, I think it's supposed to be 49 wide. So the actual pattern, you always want your patterns to be about 1.5 inches wider, 2 inches wider. So this pattern is about 51 inches wide. By the time you sew it, that takes 1 inch. By the time you put your tacking strip on, you sew your tacking strip, that's another inch. So, and I always, when you order like a 48-inch wide swag pattern, even though it's 48, I put the sewing allowances into them. So it actually is going to be roughly 50 inches. And by the time you sew it, it'll come out to 48. So if you do order a pattern, keep that in mind, that it's going to have the sewing allowances already built into them. Okay, there it is pleated. Now I'm going to check my width. I know my drop's going to be fine because my drop on this one was fine. So, and this is about a 17-inch drop from the top down, and I always measure from here. That's where I get my measurement, from the top of the swag down to this. I don't really include this bottom cuff in that measurement, so it would be a little longer if you did. Now I'm going to measure each side of this. This is about 16.25 inches, and what I'm measuring is the pleat from this part, that part of the pleat, to this. So it's the beginning to the end part of the pleat. Got 16.25 on that one. I do have 16.25 on the other side. The whole thing is measuring just about 50 inches, which is about what I want. Let me just double check. Yes, okay, because it has to finish at around 49 inches. So 50 at this point is pretty good. Now the next part of this is I'm going to staple it in place. And then once it's stapled in place, I'm going to go ahead. What I do is I staple up very close up to here, and then I sew my tacking strip on. This is what that's called, tacking strip, because it gets tacked onto the board. That's why they call it a tacking strip, which I'll show you that also. Using a 1/2 inch sewing allowance. So I'm leaving the staples in there until I sew it down. And then from that point, I will remove the staples. I'm going to start with the inside of the swag. I don't want to start on the outside over here because then it gives a chance for these to come apart. So I want to start with the inside of it. And I'm stapling very close to the edge. One side. Okay, the only place I'm keeping a pin is in here because I want to make sure that this is called the neck, that there's a pin holding the lining in place. Now we're going to go over, this strip right here can be anything. I usually cut it about 3.5 inches wide, and of course the length of the swag plus a little extra because when I tack it onto the board I bend this to give it to a clean finish, which I will also be showing you how to do. Anyhow, so we're going to head over to the sewing machine and we're going to sew this down. Okay, so here's my swag. Now I'm going to be putting this strip on here, which is about 3.5 inches wide, and it's plenty long enough because I'm going to be cutting off at the end. And to start with, you want to make sure that you're over the swag by, it doesn't matter, 1/2 inch, 1.5 inches, whatever, because you can bend it in or cut it off and then bend it in. However, this is going to go face down on your swag using the same fabric. And again, what that does is when you staple this onto your board, it gives it what's called a self-facing. So you're not looking at lining or anything else. It gives it kind of a clean finish, especially if your swag might be hanging a little lower. You don't want to see the board. You don't want to see anything else. Also, if you're using a thin stapler, this will help aid you because you can staple off of the pleats where the pleats are very thick. Anyhow, I'm going to take this and put it underneath here. Now I'm using a magnet, which gives me my 1/2 inch. I want to use a 1/2 inch sewing allowance as I'm sewing this down. Also, this tagging strip also helps with the pleats to keep the pleats in place because instead of look at that, my thread broke. Instead of the just going over the fabric, I am going over this, which helps on the folds going this way is not a problem, but on the other side where the folds are going against the foot of the sewing machine, your foot can easily get stuck into one of those pleats. So this does kind of help aid that as well. Hey, look at that. I still got eyes. I can still see those stupid threads. Okay, here we go. Let's try this again. You want to make sure that you have enough staples in there to hold the underside of the pleats. You also want to check after you sew it that you didn't get a pleat stuck backwards. So sometimes it can get stuck backwards where you have a big bump. You'll understand what I'm saying once you do it, and you look to the back of the swag and you see a big bump. You'll understand what I'm trying to say here. I even had to put a seam on my tacking strip because the tacking strip was not wide enough, so I had to put a little seam. That's what that is right there. And of course, it's plenty wide enough. Now at this point, you can go ahead and remove the staples. The staples are going to be here, right here. Now you want to be careful when you're removing your staple. And this fabric is fine, but you could have a very thin fabric that when you pull a staple out, it could create a run. So you want to watch that. And if you had to, you could actually leave those staples in, because when this goes over it, obviously it does cover the staples. But as you can see, that my staples are far enough away from where I'm sewing. That's why I prefer putting the staples up very close. If you put them down too far, then when you pull them out, you see the holes where they were left. So putting them very close to the top of the swag would make sense. My next step is I'm going to take this over to the pressing board, and I'm going to press this down so it has a nice clean finish before I put it on the board. And that's it. And now we're going to staple these. I've got 3 of these swags and a pair of jobs. We're going to staple them all onto the board. We're going to show you how to do that in just a second. Okay, so I'm going to start mounting this swag now. And what I'm going to have to do is just kind of slide the camera. This board is 112 inches wide. It has 3 swags on it that are 59 inches wide. And you can tell on this board I covered it in lining. But I left this all raw up at the top because it's not going to matter since I'm going over it with the swag. But the clean finishes is on the bottom of the board. So we wouldn't have any issues there. So what I'm going to do here with this tacking strip, this is the tacking strip right here, is I'm going to bend this down to give it a clean finish, and then I'm going to bring it to the edge of my board. And I want to keep this entire tacking strip on the top of the board about 1/8 of an inch back, so you don't see that tacking strip per se. And then I'm going to come over to the other end. I'm bending that down also. I'm giving the swag a little stretch, not much, just a little bit, just to keep it honest. And I'm going to tack it there, again, about 1/8 of an inch. Now I'm going to work in the center. So what I have with the 3 swags is I've got 2, I'm going to put one on the left hand side, the other one on the right hand side, and then the third one's going to be what's called center dominant, where it goes right over the top of the other 2. Okay, this one's on. I like fixing the pleats because I don't like anything to get wrinkled. Okay, now we're going to slide the camera all the way down to the other edge here. It'd be nice to have a film crew, but not in my budget. Okay, here we go. And you can see this is the jabbo here, and it is attached. I just have it kind of slid underneath the board out of the way because the swags are actually going underneath. I'm sorry, the jabbo is going underneath the swag. So for now, I just got it out of the way. So again, I'm bending the tacking strip underneath to give it a clean finish. Giving it a staple, coming over to the other end. I'm feeling where the edge of the board is to make sure. My entire tacking strip is on top of the board, about an eighth of an inch away from the edge. Okay, now we're going to put the center swag on. Move it down the line again. All right. With the center swag is I did put a mark right on the center of the board, where it's not going to be seen once I cover it with the swag. And I also put a mark on the swag up here, and that tells me where the center of my swag is. So now I'm going to put this over on top, like so. I'm going to make sure that lines up. This time, just to make sure, I'm going to put the staple to the center. Now I'm going to work bending my fabric for a clean finish here. Okay. Now the next step is to bend in the tacking strip. All of it in like so. And then we're going to staple it down again. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to staple all this down, and then we're going to hang it up. We're going to take a look at it. Be right back. So these are the very first two swags that I made, and these had the asymmetrical jabos. This is probably going between a fireplace or something where they wanted a long one on one side, then a short, and then a long. I'm sure there's something separating a fireplace, whatever. I personally don't know. I'm just the guy who makes them. Anyhow, so that's what these look like. Now we're going to hang this big, large board. We're going to take a look at how this looks. But there's something I want to show you on this, and it's something that you want to do anytime you're making swags. You see these jabos? Always press those folds in and put pins. I have these all pinned in place, and I also press the return right here, going around where it wraps around the board. Make sure you do that because it's going to make it look so much nicer. And then once you get it hung, then remove your pin. So just a little tip on your jabos. And again, I also have these jabos on my website. If you want to buy just the patterns, they come fully pleated. If you don't, you want to make your own, that's fine. I'm just pointing it out to you. And so we're going to go hang this right now. We can take a look at it. All right, so here's the treatment. Now the one thing that you don't notice are the swag seams. Again, they're here. They're right here. You can't see the other ones that are underneath here. And there is one over here. And on the opposite end, there's one there. But you really don't notice it. The other thing you may notice is that this swag is much deeper, and that is true. This is a 20-inch deep swag. These are 17 inches deep. That had nothing to do with me. That's what the customer had specified, that they wanted a deeper center swag. Anyhow, that's how you pleat the swag up. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to go on our website, Factory Direct Designers Workroom. I do have a spot where you can email me if you like. You can also purchase patterns if you're interested in purchasing a pattern. But other than that, have a great day. Thank you for watching.